Star Wars Echoes, The Ghost of Orestes, Part 2. Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi stood perfectly still, the flickering scan lines of his transmission seeming to pause for a moment, catching his face in a mask of jagged blue light. "A vengeance," Obi-Wan repeated. The words sounded bitter, like a long-held grudge finally given air. He looked with disdain upon his former pupil. It was no secret that Obi-Wan had never desired an apprentice. He often shunned the company of others, preferring to work in solitude, buried deep within the temple archives. He was a creature of logic, of cold and calculated reason. He had little patience for teaching. The war had changed everything. Ahsoka had been assigned to Kenobi shortly after the Battle of Geonosis. The Republic had been humbled by that crucial first conflict, and Obi-Wan seemed to have taken it as a personal insult. In the years that followed, he had honed Ahsoka through relentless drills and grueling practice. His tutelage, brutal and uncompromising, forging her into a finely tuned instrument of war. Do you think it could be him?" Ahsoka said, choosing her words carefully. Obi-Wan's eyes darkened. "That boy was lost to the whims of a madman," he said finally. "There have been no confirmed reports of their whereabouts in over 10 years. "But there were rumors," Ahsoka replied, pushing her luck. In the official records, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice, Anakin Skywalker, had abandoned the Order shortly after the Battle of Naboo, disappearing into the lawless wastes of the Outer Rim. It had never made sense to her. Qui-Gon had been the first Jedi to defeat a Sith in over 1,000 years. He'd been commended by the Republic, even offered a seat on the Jedi Council. Yet, he'd walked away. The whispers of Qui-Gon and his apprentice in years after their departure were favorites amongst some of the youngest in the Order. The Nal Hutta Uprising, the slave rebellions on Kessel, Ryloth, and Tatooine, the collapse of the Pike Syndicate. Obi-Wan seemed to sense her thoughts. "Do not mistake rumor for fact, Ahsoka," Obi-Wan said coolly. "My former master is no hero. He fans the flames of chaos and leaves destruction in his wake. If he were operating within the Republic, we'd have apprehended him. Thankfully, he has restricted his activities to worlds beyond our jurisdiction. This boy on Orestes is another matter. He has openly attacked Republic assets and assaulted a Jedi Knight. He is an insurgent and must be dealt with." "What are my orders, Master?" "You will eliminate him." The warrior knelt in the dust, his twin lightsabers placed parallel before him, like offerings to the mountain gods. Around him, pebbles, rusted shards of durasteel, and crystalline motes of dust drifted in a slow, rhythmic orbit, caught in a gravity of his own making. "I told you to leave," he said. He didn't move, but his voice vibrated in the ground beneath Ahsoka's feet. "You knew I'd be back," she replied, stopping just short of the swirling nexus. The man looked up. He was strikingly young, perhaps only a few years her senior, but his face carried the weight of 1,000 frontier stars. His features were high and angular, carved with a ruggedness that spoke of desert sand and mountain snow. Once again, it was his eyes that drew her attention. They were a piercing electric blue, clear as Kyber, and filled with a raw intensity. It was like staring into the heart of the Force. "You should tell your troops to stand down," he said, his gaze fixed on Ahsoka. She felt a flush of heat beneath her facial markings. "I came alone." The man's expression didn't shift, but a small, sharp pebble suddenly shot from his orbit, pinging off a piece of wreckage 50 yards to their left. "No," he said calmly. "There are 12 men hidden in the remains of that uplink station, 10 more in the tree line to the east, and your captain, the one with the orange helmet, is perched atop of the cooling tower with a long-range cycler rifle." A short, sharp burst of static hissed through Ahsoka's comm, the involuntary flinch of a lie caught in the act. Ahsoka sighed, the weight of her silver chains feeling like a yoke. She tapped her wristcom. "Rex," she spoke, her voice steady. "Take the men and withdraw to the landing area." "Commander?" Rex's voice crackled back, thick with tactical concern. "We have a clean line of sight. If he moves—" "You heard me, Captain," Ahsoka interrupted, her eyes never leaving the warrior. "I will accomplish this mission on my own. Return to the ship and await my signal." There was a long pause, the sounds of boots shifting on gravel over comms, and then a crisp, "Copy that, sir. Moving out." The pressure in the air eased. The swirling dust settled, falling back to the floor in a single, silent curtain. The man reached out, and his lightsabers leapt into his palms with a mechanical clack, but he did not ignite them. "You're a long way from the temple, Commander," he said, standing up. "Did the council send you to arrest me, or are you here to offer them my head?" "I am here to bring you to justice." He really did laugh this time. It was a strange sound and seemed to fill the space between them. Ahsoka had spent her life in temples and on warships. She was used to solemn silence, respectful whispers, and carefully chosen words. The warrior's laugh seemed too big to be allowed. It was full of life and energy. It belonged in a cantina, not a vacant battlefield. "Tell me," he said, stopping abruptly, his voice dropping to a low, steady thrum. "Your clone wars have been raging for 7 years now. In all that time, through all those campaigns, how many people have you helped?" Ahsoka straightened her shoulders. Why were they still speaking? She had her orders, yet she had not reached for her weapon. She felt paralyzed. She allowed herself a moment of peace, using the Force to clear her mind. "The Republic currently occupies over 66% of the mid-rim sectors," she said, slipping into the familiar tone she used for the briefing room. "We've successfully pushed the enemy blockade from—" "No," the warrior interrupted, his voice cutting through her statistics like a blade. His eyes flashed dangerously. "That's not what I asked." Ahsoka took a deep breath and tried again. "We have secured thousands of non-combatant worlds," she said, her voice tightening. "We've established refugee corridors and ensured the repatriation of displaced persons on every world we've liberated." The warrior didn't move, but the air around him felt colder. "You see the galaxy through maps and schematics, Commander. You see armies, warships, and industrial output. But do the people of your republic flourish? Do they sleep safely at night? Do they enjoy the freedoms and justice you claim to defend?" Ahsoka bit her lip, the taste of copper sharp in her mouth. She opened her mouth to cite the Chancellor's latest decree regarding civil liberties and constitutional rights, but the words died in her throat. Her life was a cycle of hyperlanes and war rooms. She spent her days speaking with politicians about strategic interests, to generals about acceptable casualties, and tacticians about resource management. She knew the armor thickness of a Maleficent-class frigate, but she couldn't remember the last time she'd spoken to a civilian who wasn't screaming in terror or begging for rations. "The war effort is succeeding," she managed to say, though it sounded hollow. "We are securing territory. We are—" "You are conquering," the warrior corrected. "You secure the dirt, but you lose the people. You move from world to world, leaving a trail of liberated ruins behind you, and you wonder why the Outer Rim looks at your white-armored soldiers and sees an invasion." Ahsoka felt the sting of his words, a heat rising in her chest that wasn't from the Force. "If you are who I think you are," she said, her voice regaining its edge, "then you are the one leaving behind a trail of destruction. You and your master have brought nothing but instability to the Outer Rim. You overthrow the syndicates, but you leave a vacuum. Pike Space is now a battlefield of squabbling pirates, thieves, and murderers. You free slaves and leave them to starve in the chaos you created." The warrior didn't flinch. He actually tilted his head, a look of mild pity crossing his face. "Borrowed words," he remarked. The thrum in his voice was gone, replaced by a cold clarity. "You speak with the voice of another, but you lack conviction. Is this your master speaking?" He took a step closer. The weight of his presence felt like a challenge. "When was the last time you walked the streets of Mos Eisley? Have you been to the spice mines of Kessel, the jungles of Felicia, or the shadowlands of Kashyyyk? Have you spoken to the people? Have you shared their food, heard their songs? They once drowned in the shadows, but now live in the light. Yes, there are squabbles. Yes, there are those who seek to take advantage, but for the first time in their lives, they have a choice. They can live and die as free people." He gestured vaguely toward the silver chains on her uniform. "Imagine what might be achieved if your republic devoted its vast resources to those living in destitution as slaves and servants instead of your latest instrument of war. You protect a construct. The republic is a machine that exists only to serve itself." Ahsoka's hand drifted toward the hilt of her lightsaber. Her mind was a storm. The republic stands for something. It had stood for something for over 1,000 generations. She was not about to let some wild boy convince her otherwise. Then it hit. A swell of fear, agony, and sudden jagged death tore through the Force like a physical blow. Ahsoka gasped, her knees buckling as the sheer weight of it flooded her senses. Across from her, the warrior staggered, his face contorting. A few seconds later, the physical world caught up. Boom. Ahsoka Tano stood in her temporary command tent, the blue glow of numerous datapads casting dark shadows beneath her eyes. She'd read all the reports. Though the technical contents varied, the conclusion was absolute. Their mission on Orestes was over. It wasn't clear what had caused the explosion. An initial triage suspected a large gas pocket that had somehow evaded their mining sensors. Additional reports blamed faulty drilling equipment, corroded fuel tanks, and unstable explosives. It didn't matter now. The Dunium was gone, swallowed by the mountain, and buried under several miles of jagged rock. It would take years to properly excavate and repair the mine, years the Republic didn't have. Ahsoka let out a long, weary sigh. She did not relish the report she'd have to submit to the Council. In addition, how could she explain that the very man she'd been sent here to eliminate was the reason most of her men had made it through the night? When they arrived at the disaster, Ahsoka had slipped instantly into the role of commander, establishing a perimeter triage zone and coordinating the 501st into specialized search and rescue teams. Her lightsaber had become a tool of utility, carving through the wreckage with careful precision to reach the trapped miners. The warrior, on the other hand, hadn't waited for orders. He'd moved through the debris like a Nexu. He slipped into gaps too small for any soldier and used the Force to lift massive boulders that blocked the path to the injured. Ahsoka remembered the groan of shifting plate steel as a support beam buckled. She had braced herself for impact, using the Force as a protective shield, but the weight never came. Instead, she had looked up to see him. When he finally lowered the slab, ensuring a dozen clones had scrambled to safety first, he didn't look for praise. He simply turned toward the next cry for help. Ahsoka looked down at the casualty list. It was grim, but far better than it ought to have been. Half her squad had been deep in those caves when the blast occurred. Kix, Jesse, Hardcase. They were all alive because the man the Council labeled as an insurgent had helped them. Master Kenobi had called him a boy lost to the whims of a madman, a shadow of a fallen legacy. But as she'd watched him move through the rubble, she couldn't help but wonder if the whispers told by the Jedi younglings were true. Could this really be the one they called the Chosen One? She eyed the note she'd received from Rex, half hidden among her maps and schematics. It was only a few lines, but its meaning was clear. He'd checked the translation over and over again. Alatra didn't mean ghost. It was a local variation of the Dai Bendu term, Jedi. Movement across the camp caught her eye. Through the tent flap, she saw that he was still there, moving quietly among the wounded. He was checking their Bacta supplies and offering steady words of encouragement. Ahsoka felt a sharp pang in her chest. The men of the 501st were already packing up, their mission to Orestes over, and wounded clones were being ferried back to the Vigilant. As she watched, the same young boy she'd seen in the village approached the man, offering a flagon of water. He took a long drink, and the boy smiled. He seemed to sense her gaze. He looked up, and their eyes met across the mist. In that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. He bowed his head respectfully. "Commander?" Rex's voice broke her trance. The captain stood at the entrance of the tent, his helmet tucked under his arm. He followed her gaze to the man in the mist. "The men are asking about him, sir," Rex said quietly, his voice devoid of his usual tactical edge. "They want to know if we're still supposed to, well, you know, the mission parameters." Ahsoka looked at the report she had started, the one that labeled the warrior an insurgent. She reached out and deleted the draft. "The mission failed, Rex," she said, her voice steadying. "The target vanished in the explosion. Write it up as a total loss." Rex didn't blink. He just nodded, a small, knowing quirk at the corner of his mouth. "Understood, Commander." He replaced his helmet and returned to his patrol. Ahsoka still believed in the Order. She still believed the Republic was a tool for good, a construct worth defending. She was committed to that belief. But as she watched this Jedi Alatra fade back toward the high peaks, where the sun never quite reached, she recognized that perhaps war wasn't the only option in the battle against darkness. The light would always endure in the hearts of those brave enough to keep it.